In a world stitched together by sacred scrolls and whispered prayers, the heavens are not empty. They are watched. They are moved. They are filled with messengers, voices of light, and servants of God who walk between seen and unseen. Yet how many names do we truly know? Gabriel is the herald, Michael is the warrior, but what of Raphael? In the ancient Book of Tobit, hidden away in Catholic Bibles and rejected by Protestant canons, there is a story of healing, a tale of blindness, of a demon's death of a fish, and of an angel who walked unnoticed beside men. His name was Raphael. His mission, healing not just the body but the soul, the broken, and the forgotten. He traveled disguised, calling himself Azarias. He guided the young Tobias across deserts and rivers. He caught a monstrous fish. He battled a demon named Asmodeus, and then, only at the end, revealed his glory. "I am Raphael," he said, "one of the 7 who stand before the throne." But who are the 7? The Bible names only 3, the Quran only 2. Why is Raphael so unknown? In Islam, the 3rd archangel is not Raphael but Israfil, the one who will blow the trumpet to announce the day of judgment. And in the Quran, Israfil is not even named. He exists through hadith, not scripture. So where is Raphael? Has he been renamed, forgotten, replaced? The tension runs deeper. In the Book of Enoch, Raphael binds the fallen angels in the abyss. He is a warrior, not just a healer. He imprisons Azazel. He punishes the Nephilim. This is not the gentle Raphael of Tobit. This is a sword-bearing servant of wrath. So which is true? Is Raphael the angel of healing or the enforcer of divine justice? Is he among the 7 heavens or only a symbol in apocryphal books? And in Islam, why is he absent from the Quran's mention of angels? Where did his name go? And what if Raphael, the unseen companion, was walking beside the prophets too, but under another name? What if the angel who healed Tobit is the same who whispered strength to Jesus or who comforted Mohammed in the cave, but we never knew? There is more. The Book of Enoch, cherished by early Christians and Ethiopians, places Raphael at the heart of the angelic rebellion. But the same book was cast aside, deemed too mystical, too dangerous, too revealing. Why? What was it trying to say about angels, about demons, about us? What if the angels themselves are a mirror, and what we believe about them reveals what we believe about God? If Raphael healed Tobit's father, if he killed the demon, if he stood before the throne, why do some traditions pretend he never existed? Is he the 4th archangel, or the first to be forgotten? And if healing is truly divine, if it is one of God's greatest gifts, why has the healer been erased? What else have we lost? What other angels have we turned into myths? What sacred stories have we buried with labels like Apocrypha and not canon? And why across faiths do the stories not match? Did the same angel wear many names? Did the same hand write in different tongues? Did heaven change, or did we? But what if these stories were never meant to agree? There once lived a man named Tobit, righteous and exiled, dwelling among strangers in the land of Nineveh. A son of Naphtali, he clung to the laws of Moses while the world around him bowed to foreign gods. Even in captivity, Tobit buried the dead of his people, though the king had forbidden it. For this, his life became a trial. One day, after burying a slain kinsman, Tobit returned weary and collapsed beside the outer wall of his house. Bird droppings fell into his eyes as he slept, and a strange affliction took hold of him. He awoke in darkness, his sight gone, though his soul remained clear. Blinded not by age but by fate, Tobit's heart turned inward. He wept not for himself but for his family. He called upon his only son, Tobias, and instructed him to travel far, to retrieve silver he had once entrusted to a relative in Media. But Tobias was young, untested, and the road was long. So Tobit sought a companion for his son, a guide, a protector. And that is when a stranger appeared. A man stood at the gate, tall and noble, with eyes that saw too much. He called himself Azarias, son of Ananias. He offered to guide Tobias, and Tobit, sensing something otherworldly, accepted. Unseen by human eyes, Azarias was no man. He was Raphael, an angel of the Lord, sent not only to fetch silver but to heal wounds deeper than sight. The two journeyed together, Tobias and the angel in disguise. As they reached the river Tigris, Tobias went to wash his feet, and a great fish leapt from the water to devour him. Startled, he cried out, but Raphael commanded him to seize the fish and drag it ashore. The angel instructed him to keep the heart, liver, and gall, for they would be needed, though he did not say why. They continued, traveling eastward, and came upon a land ruled by a man named Raguel. His daughter Sarah was fair but sorrowful, for she had been married 7 times, and each husband was slain by a demon named Asmodeus on the very night of their union. Now cursed and alone, Sarah's prayers reached heaven, and heaven sent Raphael. Raphael told Tobias he should marry her. Tobias trembled. "But she has buried 7, he said. Raphael told him not to fear. "Take the heart and liver of the fish," he said, "and place them upon the coals. The demon will flee." So Tobias obeyed. On the night of their marriage he burned the sacred organs as instructed. And Asmodeus, the dark spirit who had hovered over Sarah's life like a shadow, screamed and vanished, fleeing to the farthest parts of Egypt. There, Raphael pursued him and bound him. Then Tobias and Sarah prayed, not for passion but for mercy. "Grant that we may grow old together," they whispered, and the Lord listened. When they returned to Tobit, the angel instructed Tobias to place the gall of the fish upon his father's eyes. As the bitter liquid touched the blind sockets, a white film peeled away. Tobit opened his eyes and saw the sun again. He saw his son. He saw the healing. Then Raphael revealed himself. "I am Raphael," he said, "one of the 7 who stand before the glory of God." At once, father and son fell to the ground in awe, trembling not in fear but in holy wonder. The Bible ends the story there with joy and restoration. Yet many Christians today have never heard it. For the Book of Tobit, once revered, was set aside during the Protestant Reformation. Martin Luther excluded it from the canon, calling it apocrypha, hidden, questionable, unworthy of equal place beside the books of Moses or the letters of Paul. But why? Why cast aside a story of healing, of angelic help, of demonic defeat? Was it too mystical, too ordinary in its miracles, or did it say too much about angels? For in this story, Raphael walks among men, touches flesh, performs healing through natural things, a fish, a prayer, a journey. He is no distant being, no flaming sword at the gate of Eden. He is quiet, kind, disguised. He does not demand worship. He serves. And yet his name is almost forgotten. In the Islamic tradition, the Quran does not mention Raphael. It speaks of Jibril, Gabriel, and of Michael. It speaks of angels who record deeds, who descend with commands, who guard the soul and guide the winds. But it is in Hadith that we find mention of a 3rd archangel, Israfil, the one who holds the trumpet, awaiting the divine command to blow it and end the world. Israfil is majestic. He is said to be colossal, standing with his lips to the trumpet, eyes never blinking lest he miss the moment. But his story is brief. We know not his deeds, nor his voice, nor his steps on earth. Could Israfil be Raphael? The names share a root. Both mean God heals or God's remedy. Both are tied to sound, the trumpet of judgment, the word of restoration. Some scholars have proposed they are one and the same, lost in translation, remembered differently across tongues. But the Quran does not confirm it, and so a question remains. Is Raphael missing, or has he simply changed form? In both traditions, an angel is sent to heal the unseen, a father's blindness, a daughter's curse, a nation's soul. In both, the angel walks as a man, and in both, the truest healing comes not by power but by mercy. Perhaps that is why he was forgotten. Power is easy to honor, healing is quiet. But if Raphael was truly one of the seven who stand near to God, then erasing his name is no small matter. And if the angel of healing was removed, what does that say about the stories we choose to keep? What other messengers walked beside us unnoticed? Who else was renamed, reshaped, redefined? If Raphael once bound a demon, healed the blind, and led a righteous man through the desert, why does the world no longer speak his name? What was taken out and why? Long before Tobit, before Nineveh, before Persia's rise or Babylon's ruin, there was another world, a time of giants and watchers, of rebellion in the skies and judgment from above. This world is hidden not in the common Bible but in a book older than its chapters, a book once cherished, now cast away, the Book of Enoch. In it the heavens open and secrets unfold. It tells of angels who descended to the earth in the days before the flood, 200 of them called the Watchers. They were meant to guide humanity to teach righteousness, but instead they desired the daughters of men. They took wives. They bore children, giants of immense size and terrible hunger called Nephilim. The earth groaned beneath their feet. The sins of these fallen angels spread. They taught sorcery, weaponry, astrology, charms, and enchantments. They turned men from heaven and turned women into weapons. Blood filled the soil. The skies darkened. And then heaven responded. God summoned the holy ones, his faithful angels. And among them stood Raphael. Gabriel was sent to destroy the giants in battle. Michael was sent to bind the leader of the Watchers, Semiaza, but Raphael was given a darker mission. Bind Azazel, God commanded, hand and foot. Cast him into the desert of Dudil. Open the pit. Cover it with jagged stones so he may never rise. Azazel had taught men the art of war, the craft of armor, the beautifying of eyelids, and the forging of knives. He was blamed not only for violence, but for seduction, for vanity, for turning beauty into sin. He was no ordinary rebel. He was a corrupter. So Raphael obeyed. He descended from heaven unseen but unstoppable. He found Azazel defiant and robed in ruined glory. With chains of divine fire, Raphael bound him. The earth cracked. The stones swallowed him. The pit was sealed. And then Raphael covered it with darkness. But the tale does not end there. The Book of Enoch speaks of a future day, when Azazel will be judged again, when the pit will open and fire will consume what remains. Until then, he is imprisoned, waiting. His name, once divine, now echoes in shadow. And Raphael, the healer, is also the jailer. This is not the gentle figure from Tobit who cured blindness. This is not the companion on a father's errand. This is a cosmic judge acting with force, a purifier of worlds, an enforcer of divine justice. What then are we to make of this duality? How can one angel be both healer and punisher, both comfort and wrath? The ancient texts do not explain it, they simply tell it. And they do not shy away from the truth that angels serve many roles. Not all wield swords, but neither do all carry balm. Raphael is both. Yet many believers have never heard this story. The Book of Enoch, once widely read among the early Christians, especially in Ethiopia and parts of the ancient church, was eventually banned. It was called too mystical, too dangerous, too strange. Some said it gave angels too much voice. Others feared it resembled myths more than doctrine. But in the earliest days it was known and loved. Even the New Testament quotes it, subtly and quietly. The Epistle of Jude speaks of angels bound in chains and of Enoch, the seventh from Adam, who prophesied against the ungodly. Yet the full book was lost, at least in the West, until an Ethiopian manuscript was rediscovered centuries later. And with it, Raphael returned in fire and judgment. His story challenges the idea of gentle angels, of soft white wings and sweet songs. It speaks of a world where divine justice is not a concept but an action, where holiness requires force, where healing begins by removing what is diseased. This is not a story many want. It is not tidy, it is not calming, it is ancient and raw and terrifying. And yet it is there, written in ink older than empires. In Islam, the tale of fallen angels is echoed but altered. The Quran tells of Iblis, the jinn who refused to bow to Adam. It speaks of Harut and Marut, two angels sent to Babylon to test mankind. But it does not speak of Azazel as a fallen angel, nor does it describe Raphael binding him. Instead, Islam offers a clearer hierarchy. Angels do not disobey. They do not fall. In this, the two traditions split. In the Bible and Apocrypha, angels have free will, some choosing light, others choosing pride. In Islam, angels are pure, created from light and incapable of rebellion. Only jinn rebel. So what does that make of Raphael's task in Enoch? If Islam rejects fallen angels, then it must reject Raphael the jailer. If Christianity questions the Book of Enoch, then it silences Raphael the enforcer. And yet he remains, between texts, between beliefs, between roles. Perhaps that is his secret. Perhaps healing is not only mending what is broken, but also restraining what destroys. Perhaps Raphael is not forgotten but hidden deliberately. His name may be absent from some scriptures, but his presence lingers. In the Quran, Israfil holds the trumpet of judgment, ready to shatter the skis. He is never named directly, yet his breath will end the world. Could this be the same angel who once bound Azazel, who once healed Tobit? Could Israfil and Raphael be mirrors of the same truth, two names for one servant? Both stand in the silence before catastrophe. Both act at the turning of worlds. Both serve God by ushering in new beginnings, through endings. But the stories do not say it plainly. They leave it for us to wonder. And so we are left with fragments. One Raphael walks beside a boy, catching fish and curing blindness. Another Raphael descends like lightning, burying the enemy of heaven beneath rock and sand. Which is the true face? Or are both true? Can an angel be gentle and severe? Can mercy carry a chain? What does it mean that the same angel appears in both the softest healing and the hardest judgment? And why would such a figure be erased from one scripture and marginalized in another? Was he too dangerous for the church? Too human for doctrine? Too powerful for comfort? Or perhaps too close to the truth? The Book of Enoch was silenced but not lost. The name of Raphael was hidden but not erased. And now the question remains: who decides which angels we remember? And what else have we chosen to forget? In the stillness of the Quran, the angels are never the center, but they are never absent either. They are described with precision, creatures of light without desire, without disobedience, performing only what their Lord commands. They descend with rain, guard the gates of paradise, record every deed with unwavering vigilance. They do not speak unless spoken to. They do not sleep. They do not sin. Among them, two names are most known, Jibril and Mikael. Jibril, the conveyor of revelation, brought down the Quran to the heart of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. His descent was not poetic but weighty. He did not carry scrolls or visions but a voice that changed the world. He appeared in the cave of Hira, clothed in awe, commanding the Prophet to read, even when he could not. He is the voice behind the voice, the unseen echo behind every verse. Mikael, though mentioned less, is known for his role in sustaining life. He brings rain, oversees provision, governs the natural world. He is tied to mercy, to the rhythms of the seasons, to the unseen generosity of the heavens. But where is Raphael? The Quran does not mention him, not by name, not by deed. Instead, it alludes to another figure, the one who will blow the trumpet, ending this world and beginning the next, Israfil. He is not described in vivid stories. He does not speak. He stands waiting. His trumpet is pressed to his lips. One blast and every soul will fall, another and all shall rise. But the Quran does not say his name. Only Hadith traditions fill in that detail with varying certainty. Some say Israfil has wings that span from east to west. Some say his eyes weep rivers beneath the throne of God. But even these are not universally accepted. His name is not among the Quran's pages. Only Jibril and Mikael are named. And so we are left with a silence where a name should be. Is it Israfil or is it Raphael? Some early scholars believed the names pointed to the same angel. The Hebrew asterisk R A macron F A macron letter 2 B E macron L, meaning God heals, echoes the Arabic asterisk Israfil asterisk, which some interpret as the one who brings command by God or the burning of God. But language is a delicate thing. It bends, it conceals, it evolves. Others reject the connection entirely. They argue that Islam has its own cosmology, its own hierarchy, its own revelations untouched by apocryphal memory. To force the names together, they say, is to blur two revelations. But what if they are not so different? What if the same angel walked two roads? What if Raphael, the healer of Tobit, and Raphael, the jailer of Azazel, is the same one who stands with trumpet in hand at the edge of time? Could healing be not only the mending of flesh, but the ending of what is broken? Could the last trumpet itself be the final act of healing? To the believer of Islam, the angels do not fall. They do not disobey. They are not tempted by flesh. They do not marry. There are no Nephilim, no rebellion among the watchers, no chained Azazel buried in the wilderness. These are not their stories. But they have their own stories. Harut and Marut, two angels sent as a test to Babylon, taught mankind magic, but only after warning them. Their tale is cryptic, brief, wrapped in mystery. Were they angels in disguise, or were they a warning against misusing knowledge? The Quran gives us fragments, and that is where Raphael becomes most curious. For Islam never denies the possibility of more angels. It does not limit the number to 3. It speaks of angels in multitudes, ranks upon ranks, circling the throne, guarding hell, guiding souls at death, witnessing every word spoken by man. It speaks of Ridwan, the gatekeeper of paradise, of Malik, who watches over hell, of the Munkar and Nakir, who question the dead in their graves. There is room for Raphael, there is room for many. But his name is not spoken. Perhaps that silence is not absence, but restraint. Perhaps Raphael's story was not erased but left unspoken, so that seekers might seek it themselves. In this quiet absence, something strange happens. Raphael becomes a symbol, not only of an angel, but of what has been hidden between faiths. In one tradition, he heals the blind and battles demons. In another, his deeds are scattered in unnamed figures, waiting for recognition. In one story, he walks with men. In the other, he watches from beyond the veil, trumpet in hand, mouth closed, waiting. Why do these stories not match? Why do the names change? Why are some angels remembered and others forgotten? The answer may lie not in Scripture, but in the choices made after. In counsels, in translations, in rejection, in silence. The Book of Tobit was removed from Protestant Bibles. The Book of Enoch was banished from the canon. The hadiths that name Israfil are debated, accepted by some, rejected by others. And through all this, the story of Raphael flickers like a candle, sometimes bright, sometimes faint, never entirely extinguished. The question is not whether he exists. The question is, why did we stop telling his story? And if we forgot him, what else have we forgotten? If the angel of healing is absent from our teachings, what does that say about our understanding of healing itself? We speak of mercy, yet erase the name of the angel who embodied it. We speak of justice, yet reject the angel who delivered it. We speak of revelation, yet silence the messenger who moved without being noticed. And perhaps that is the greatest mystery of all. For if Raphael was truly one of the 7 who stand before God, then his erasure is not just a loss, it is a rewriting. If Islam does not mention him, yet names Israfil, can we be sure they are not the same? If Christianity remembers him only in a discarded book, can we be sure the canon tells the full truth? If the Book of Enoch describes him as a divine warrior, and Tobit as a gentle companion, how do we reconcile both? Unless we accept that truth wears many faces. Unless we believe that God sends his messengers in ways we do not always recognize. Unless we admit that no book holds every story. So now, standing at the edge of these intersecting traditions, the question becomes personal. What if the story of Raphael, forgotten by some, veiled in others, was meant to unsettle us? What if his very absence is the lesson? What if heaven never wanted all the stories to agree? There is something tender in the way old men remember light. Tobit, once a man of sharp vision and careful steps, now walked through memory more than space. His world had become a hushed darkness, not because of age, but because of a silent affliction. One moment of rest beneath a wall, one accidental touch from a bird's droppings, and sight faded from his eyes as if the heavens themselves had drawn a curtain. But Tobit was no ordinary man. He was faithful even in exile, righteous even under foreign kings, and his heart still burned with reverence for the God of Israel. Though blind, he remained a father, and his son Tobias was now his hope. Tobit's prayers were not loud. They were quiet and aching. He asked not for riches, nor revenge, nor release from life. He asked for death, not in despair, but in dignity. He believed himself a burden. Yet even in asking to leave the world, he placed his house in order. He called Tobias to him and spoke of a debt, a trust long left in the hands of a distant kinsman named Gabil. The silver needed to be returned. The journey would be long, dangerous, filled with uncertainty. But the son, obedient and brave, agreed to go. What Tobias did not know was that heaven had already moved. An angel had been dispatched, but not with thunder or flaming sword. He came as a man. His name was Raphael, though he would not reveal it. To Tobias, he was simply a stranger at the gate, a fellow traveler named Azarias. He offered help, and Tobit, with his fatting sense and growing faith, somehow trusted the man. Perhaps he sensed what words could not say. Perhaps the soul knows when heaven is near. The journey began as most do, with uncertainty and fear. Father and son embraced, not knowing if they would ever embrace again. And as Tobias walked into the unknown, Raphael walked beside him, silent, strong, and watching. Their first trial came not from men or thieves, but from a river. At the banks of the Tigris, Tobias bent to wash his feet. The water shimmered with sunlight and all seemed well, but from below something stirred. A great fish, monstrous and sudden, surged from the water and seized Tobias's foot. He cried out, flailing. Raphael, calm and firm, commanded him, "Take hold of the fish. Do not let it go." Tobias, trembling, obeyed. He dragged the beast to shore, and there it lay, thrashing in the sand. "Open it," Raphael said, "and keep the heart, the liver, and the gall. They are useful." Tobias did not question him. The fish, once a threat, had become provision. The flesh would feed them. The organs, strange and sacred, were to be kept. For what purpose, Raphael did not say. They continued on, the desert unfolding before them. Each mile was a lesson, each step a test. In the city of Ecbatana they arrived at the house of Raguel. There they met Sarah, Raguel's only daughter, noble and grieving. She carried beauty and a burden. 7 men had married her. All 7 died on the night of their wedding, slain by a demon named Asmodeus. Her story had become a warning. Her name, a whisper of fear. People blamed her as if sorrow were her fault. But Raphael had been sent not only for silver, and not only for healing eyes. He had been sent for Sarah. He told Tobias to marry her. Tobias hesitated. Who would not? 7 husbands dead, was he to be the 8th? But Raphael reassured him. "Take the heart and liver of the fish," he said, "and place them upon the burning incense. The demon will flee." And so Tobias did. He entered her chamber with fear, not for her, but for the curse that clung to her. He lit the fire, placed the organs as told, and the room filled with smoke. And in that smoke something terrible screamed. Asmodeus, ancient and vengeful, was driven out. He fled across the land to the edges of Egypt, and Raphael followed, binding him with chains of divine force. That night Tobias and Sarah prayed together. Their prayer was not for passion, but for peace. They asked God not for pleasure, but for companionship. "Let us grow old together," they said. Heaven heard them. The days that followed were slow and golden. Tobias claimed the silver. He received blessings from Raguel, and then, with Sarah beside him, he returned to Nineveh. But the journey was not yet complete. Tobit still lived in darkness, and Raphael still had one more act. Upon returning, Tobias embraced his father and wept. He told him of the journey, the marriage, the silver, the stranger who had been their guide. Then, at Raphael's command, Tobias took the gall of the fish and applied it to his father's eyes. A white film peeled away, like scales falling from a veil. Tobit blinked once, then twice, and then he saw. He saw his son, he saw his new daughter, he saw the face of joy, and then he saw Raphael. For now, the angel revealed himself. "I am Raphael," he said, "one of the 7 who stand before the throne of God." Terror and awe struck Tobit and Tobias. They fell to their faces, but Raphael told them to rise. He reminded them that he had not eaten with them, though it seemed he had, that he had not rested, though he walked beside them, that he was sent, not for his own sake, but for theirs. And then, like mist touched by dawn, he vanished. This story is simple. A father blinded, a son faithful, a stranger sent from heaven, a fish that tried to devour and became the means of healing, a cursed bride restored, a demon cast away. And in the center of it all, Raphael, the angel who walks among men, who heals without glory, who appears only when needed and disappears when the work is done. But this story, so gentle, so filled with wonder, was removed from the Protestant canon. The Book of Tobit was labeled apocryphal. Catholics kept it. Orthodox Christians honored it, but others turned away. It was deemed too strange, too folk-like, too filled with angelic presence, too healing. But perhaps that is why it matters. Perhaps that is why it was written. Because healing is not only physical, it is relational, it is divine, it is mysterious. And because sometimes heaven answers quietly, not with earthquakes, but with a stranger at the gate. In the sacred verses of the Quran, healing is never detached from the divine. It is not merely a matter of medicine or ritual. It is a mercy, a cure sent not only to the body but to the soul. And while the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was given revelation and law, he was also given healing through words, through the recitation itself. We send down of the Quran that which is a healing and a mercy to those who believe, declares the scripture. It is not the herbs nor the hands alone, but the remembrance of God that restores what is broken. But the Quran, unlike the Book of Tobit, does not offer a story of a blind man healed by an angel's touch. It does not describe a son catching a fish or a journey across rivers to collect a debt. And yet, it holds within its verses a world where angels move constantly, not as poetic wanderers, but as appointed servants of divine order. They record every word, they descend in ranks, they shield prophets, they fight in battles, and sometimes they inspire dreams, but their names are not often mentioned. They are known by function, not by familiarity. In this quiet reserve there is a message. Islam does not concern itself with names unless they serve clarity. Jibril is named because he brought the Quran. Mikael is named because he sustains life through rain and provision. Israfil is described in the Hadiths, not the Quran itself. And beyond them there are countless others, unnamed, unknown, but not absent. Healing in Islamic tradition is understood to be from Allah directly. The Prophet Ibrahim is quoted saying, "And when I am ill, it is he who cures me." The Prophet Muhammad taught his companions to say, "O Allah, Lord of mankind, remove the harm and heal, for you are the healer. There is no healing but yours." Even when medication is used, even when a doctor prescribes, the true source is understood to be divine. But this does not mean that intermediaries do not exist. There are stories, especially in Sufi traditions and among early scholars, of dreams, visions, and unseen helpers who guide the righteous. These are not named as Raphael, but they serve a similar role. A stranger who appears with timely advice, a man who walks alongside a traveler, a voice in the desert that says turn left, not right. And later, the person looks back and wonders, was that a man or something more? The idea of angels who walk in human form is not foreign to Islam. When Jibril came to teach the people, he appeared as a man with very white clothes and very black hair. No signs of travel, no dust, and no one recognized him. He sat before the prophet, asked questions of religion, and then departed. Only afterward did the prophet say, "That was Jibril. He came to teach you your religion." In another moment, 3 guests visited Ibrahim. He slaughtered a calf and served them meat. But they did not eat. He grew uneasy, and then they revealed themselves as angels. They were sent to give him glad tidings of a son and to bring judgment upon a people. These stories mirror Tobit's tale. An angel in disguise, a journey, a revelation, a miracle. So why then does Islam not preserve Raphael's name? The answer may not lie in denial, but in emphasis. Islam does not concern itself with cataloging angels for their own sake. It concerns itself with the one who sends them. The focus is never on the messenger, but on the message. Not on the healing hand, but on the command behind it. This is a subtle but important distinction. In the Book of Tobit, Raphael is central. He guides, speaks, performs, reveals. His presence is part of the drama. But in Islam, the angels are veiled. They act, but rarely do they stand in the spotlight. Even the angel who records every deed you commit does not interrupt you. He writes silently. Even the angel of death comes when commanded, without words. Even Israfel, with his trumpet pressed to his lips, stands silent for millennia. There is humility in this framework. It is not that Raphael does not exist. It is that he is not needed to be named. This leads to a powerful idea. Perhaps the angel who helped Tobias was real. Perhaps the one who healed Tobit's eyes was truly from God. But perhaps the name is less important than the truth behind it. That God sends help. That angels walk among us. That healing comes in unexpected forms. And perhaps, many who read this have already met a Raphael in their own lives, but never knew it. A doctor who appeared at the right moment. A stranger on a road who spoke one sentence and vanished. A dream that changed the course of a heart. A companion who stayed only long enough to complete a purpose and then was gone. In the absence of Raphael's name in the Quran, there is an opening. An invitation to see beyond categories. To see that God's mercy is vast. That his agents are many. That healing does not always need a name to be divine. And so the story of Tobit becomes a bridge, not a contradiction. It is not about proving the existence of Raphael in Islamic texts. It is about recognizing a shared truth across faiths. That heaven heals. That angels guide. That sometimes the journey of a son and the affliction of a father are not random trials, but divine appointments. And that even a fish, leaping from a river with teeth ready to devour, can become the instrument of healing. Such are the signs of God. They are everywhere but rarely labeled. So ask yourself gently, have you ever been helped by someone who left before you could thank them? Have you ever found the right answer in a place you never searched? Have you ever been healed in a way you could not explain? Then perhaps, without knowing, you too have walked beside an angel. It is strange how some names echo through time while others are lost to dust. Gabriel and Michael are spoken of from pulpits and minarets. Their stories are repeated, their deeds celebrated. They are carved into stained glass and whispered in prayers. But Raphael, the angel who walked beside men and healed without applause, is often forgotten, not denied, not disproven, simply absent. Why? Why does a story so rich in compassion, so filled with divine mercy, remain buried in the pages of a book labeled apocryphal? Why do many Christians not know the tale of Tobit and his miraculous healing? Why do many Muslims not recognize in Raphael a possible reflection of Israfel, the angel who stands silent with the trumpet of judgment? Perhaps because Raphael represents something uncomfortable, a kind of divine intimacy that we cannot control. He is not an angel of grandeur or prophecy. He is not the voice of command or the hand of war. He is quiet presence, hidden help, a messenger who does not demand to be noticed. He walks beside the weak, not above them. He heals with the bitter gall of a fish, not with thunder or fire. And in that, he confronts something deep in us, the way we choose which parts of God's story to keep and which to cast aside. In the Protestant Reformation, books like Tobit were removed from the canon. Martin Luther called them useful but not divinely inspired. The Book of Tobit was grouped with others as apocrypha, a word that means hidden. And so the story of Raphael was hidden too, not denied, not burned, just set aside. In Islam, the same silence falls for different reasons. The Quran does not name Raphael. It names Jibril and Mikael. It describes Israfel in the Hadiths, but even then sparingly. There is no narrative of a blind man healed, no story of a journey with a fish, no wedding freed from demonic curse. Islam's angels are majestic, pure, without flaw or rebellion. They do not mingle among men disguised as strangers, except with divine permission and purpose. They are not characters in drama, but instruments of decree. So again, Raphael remains unspoken. But his absence raises a question that echoes louder than his name. Who decides what stories matter? Who chooses which angels we remember? And what have we lost by forgetting? If healing is one of God's greatest mercies, why is the angel of healing absent from so many hearts? If Raphael truly stood before the throne of God, one of the seven, then forgetting him is not a minor omission. It is a wound in our collective memory. Perhaps the reason Raphael's story was quieted is because it is too human. It shows an angel who needs no temple, no army, no grand announcement. He travels like us, sleeps under the same sky, gives advice, catches fish, waits, watches, and then vanishes when the task is done. And what does that say about the divine? That God does not only work through spectacle, that miracles can come through the ordinary, that healing may arrive in a stranger's voice or in the bitter taste of gall, that angels are not always winged and glorious, they may be near, unrecognized. What if we have been taught to expect the wrong kind of holiness? What if we are waiting for thunder while God sends us whispers? What if the silence around Raphael is not a rejection, but a test? To see whether we can recognize mercy when it comes unannounced. The Book of Tobit, though set aside by some, still speaks. And its message is this: healing comes. Sometimes through journeys we do not want to take. Sometimes through strangers we do not fully trust. Sometimes through wounds that become cures. And the angel who walks beside us does not need recognition to be real. He does not wait to be thanked. He waits only to complete the mission. Then he leaves. So we must ask ourselves, what else have we silenced? Have we turned away from stories that speak of mercy because they did not fit our doctrine? Have we rejected gentleness in favor of grandeur? Have we buried names that once stood before the throne? If we forget Raphael, what does that do to our understanding of God? A God who heals. A God who sends quiet help. A God who walks with us in the form of someone we never noticed. And here is the final challenge. If Raphael healed Tobit, cast out Asmodeus, and guided a trembling boy across the desert, if Raphael stood among the 7 holy angels who serve in heaven, if Raphael was removed from books, forgotten by scholars, veiled by doctrine, erased from memory, then what does that mean for us? What else has been hidden? What sacred truths have we passed over because they came without fire? What revelations have we missed simply because they did not bear the names we expected? If Raphael was the angel of healing, then why have we chosen not to remember him? And if heaven allowed his name to fall silent, could it be that the healing itself was meant to continue, not through recognition, but through reflection? What if the greatest message of Raphael's story is not in the miracle, but in the silence that followed? There are some battles that are never announced. No trumpet sounds, no armies gather. The battlefield is a wedding chamber, the weapon is a prayer, and the enemy is not made of flesh but of darkness wrapped in desire. In the Book of Tobit, such a battle unfolds, quiet and deadly, with no spectators and no applause. At its heart stands Raphael, not as a herald of prophecy or a messenger of command, but as a slayer of demons. His opponent is not an earthly king, but a shadow with a name, Asmodeus. The story begins not with Tobias, but with Sarah. She is the daughter of Raguel, noble and devout. She is not cursed, but she is afflicted. For 7 times she is married, and 7 times she is buried. Each husband, on the night of their wedding, has been struck down by an unseen force before the marriage could even be consummated. The whispers spread. Some blame her, others call it fate, but none understand. No one can explain how joy turns to death with such consistency, how hope becomes horror in a single night. Sarah knows the truth. She has felt the presence. She has heard the breath that chills the air. His name is Asmodeus, a demon of lust and jealousy. He claims her not out of love but out of control. He refuses to let another touch her. He waits in the shadows. He strikes with certainty. And so Sarah weeps not for herself but for the shame her life has caused. In her desperation she prays for death. But her prayer, like Tobit, across the miles, is heard not by silence but by the throne of heaven. Raphael is sent. He arrives not with a sword but with a plan. He walks beside Tobias, posing as a man. He suggests a marriage not for alliance or wealth but for healing. Tobias is hesitant. Who would not be? He has heard the rumors. He knows the deaths, but Raphael reassures him. "She is yours," he says, "and you shall live." Then he gives instructions. "When you enter her chamber," he says, "take the liver and heart of the fish you caught. Place them upon burning incense. The demon will smell it and flee." There is no chant, no holy water, no drawn blade, only fire, organ, and faith. So Tobias obeys. He takes Sarah's hand. They walk into the room where 7 had died, but tonight something different waits. Tobias burns the fish parts as instructed. The smoke rises. It carries something more than scent. It carries a command. Asmodeus, sensing the change, screams. The air splits. The demon flees, flying from the chamber in agony, not defeated by strength but by obedience. He races across the land, trying to outrun the power that now chases him. But Raphael does not remain behind. The angel follows. He leaves the house and tracks the demon to the edge of Egypt. There, far from the joy he tried to poison, Asmodeus is seized. Raphael binds him, not in rope or chain, but in divine restraint. The demon is rendered powerless, sealed by the will of God through the hand of a quiet angel. And then Raphael returns. He does not boast. He does not reveal himself yet. He simply resumes the journey. The battle is over and the couple is untouched. What makes this story more than legend is not just the defeat of a demon, but the method by which it occurs. Raphael slays not with sword but with strategy. There is no direct confrontation, no fire from heaven, only preparation. The fish, an enemy turned into a tool. The smoke, an offering that purifies. The prayer spoken by 2 who desired not flesh but a future. When Tobias and Sarah pray together, they do not ask for passion, they ask for mercy. "Let us grow old together," they say. That prayer is the true weapon. It turns the chamber into sacred ground. In this moment, Raphael becomes something more than an angel. He becomes the embodiment of divine healing in its most protective form. He shields not only the body but the union. He protects not only the flesh but the covenant. He slays not only the demon but the fear that held Sarah prisoner. This story is different from other angelic appearances. There is no revelation to a prophet, no heavenly army, no thunder, just a house, a woman, a man, a demon, and an angel who walks unseen. It forces us to reconsider what spiritual warfare looks like. We often expect angels to fight like soldiers, to bring swords, to shatter mountains, to stand in blazing light. But here, the victory is quieter. It is more human. It is deeply intimate, and in that, it is terrifyingly real. Because if demons can dwell in wedding chambers, then where are we truly safe? And if angels can stand guard without being seen, then how many have already stood with us? The story of Raphael and Asmodeus is not about mythology. It is about intervention. It is about a God who answers the quietest prayers with the fiercest protection. It is about a daughter who thought she was cursed, and a son who thought he was unworthy, being brought together in mercy by a messenger whose name they did not even know. But here is where the tension sharpens. This story, so powerful, so personal, so victorious, is nearly unknown in many corners of Christianity. It is ignored entirely in Islam. There is no Sarah and Tobias in the Quran. There is no Asmodeus by name. There is no tale of a demon who strikes grooms or an angel who binds him. Instead, Islam speaks of jinn, not fallen angels. It speaks of Iblis, the one who refused to bow. It speaks of temptations, of whispers, of tests. It speaks of shayateen, plural devils who lead astray, but never of a lovesick demon named Asmodeus. The Islamic world does not affirm the Book of Tobit. And so, Raphael's victory over the demon becomes a theological orphan, celebrated in the Catholic and Orthodox traditions, but left unspoken elsewhere. Does this mean it is false? Or have we simply narrowed the stories we are willing to tell? The deeper question is not whether Asmodeus exists. It is whether we believe angels are still sent to guard marriages, to break cycles, to slay what haunts. If we do not know Raphael's name, does that mean he is absent? Or has he simply gone unnamed again? If your joy was once stolen, if your hopes were attacked before they could blossom, if you felt haunted by something you could not explain, would you know if an angel had fought for you? Would you notice if the demon fled in silence? And if your healing came not with lightning, but with a stranger's advice, would you believe it was divine? The battle between Raphael and Asmodeus may seem ancient, but its pattern is not. Jealousy still poisons. Fear still cripples. Demons, by whatever name, still wait in shadows to destroy what God intends to bless. And angels, by whatever name, still walk beside the vulnerable, slaying unseen enemies without waiting to be thanked. In the Islamic tradition, demons are real. They are not mythical creatures or symbols of inner struggle. They are beings made not of clay like man, nor of light like angels, but of smokeless fire. They are called jinn. Among them are those who believe and those who rebel. And among the rebellious there are many who whisper, who deceive, who corrupt what is sacred. Islam does not speak of a demon named Asmodeus, but it does describe forces that behave like him, creatures who sow ruin where love was meant to bloom, who hover over hearts, who wait for weakness and strike. Marriage in Islam is not merely a contract, it is a shield. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, described it as half of faith. It is a bond written on earth and recorded in heaven. It is an act of worship, not only a union of bodies but a shelter for souls. And because it is so sacred, it is targeted by those who seek to undo what God has joined. In a well-known hadith, the Prophet told of how Iblis, the leader of devils, places his throne over the water each day. From that seat he sends his followers to tempt and misguide mankind. They return one by one, boasting of the sins they have inspired. Some say, "I made him lie." Others say, "I caused her to miss prayer." But Iblis is not impressed until one comes and says, "I did not leave until I separated husband from wife." Then Iblis draws him close and says, "Yes, you have done well." This reveals a truth long known to the wise, that marriage is a battlefield, and the enemy does not always shout, he whispers. He whispers doubt, mistrust, resentment. He poisons affection with assumptions. He twists words, distorts memories, reopens old wounds. He does not destroy with swords, but with silence, sarcasm, indifference. His goal is not just separation, but to prevent the tranquility that marriage was meant to bring. In this light, the story of Sarah becomes deeply familiar. A woman tormented, a home haunted, Joy turned to mourning again and again. No one can explain it, and slowly she begins to believe that she is cursed. But Islam teaches that affliction is not always a sign of punishment. Sometimes it is a test. Sometimes it is a prelude to healing. There is no Raphael in Islamic scripture to cast out such a demon, but there is ruqya, divine recitation. There are prayers, verses from the Quran, supplications taught by the Prophet to shield the home, the heart, the bed. There is Ayat al-Kursi, recited before sleep to guard against unseen harm. There are morning and evening adkar, words that build walls against intrusion. There are angels who descend when the Quran is recited, and devils who flee when God's name is remembered. And above all, there is tawakkul, trust in God. This trust does not mean passivity. It means preparing the heart, seeking healing, asking for protection. It means acknowledging that some battles are unseen and some enemies do not announce themselves. The Quran affirms the existence of jinn who deceive, who make promises, who pretend to be allies but lead souls astray. In Surah al-Jinn they speak, "There are among us righteous and others who are not. We are of different ways." This admission reveals that the world of jinn is complex, but among the corrupt, there are those who interfere in the lives of humans, especially at moments of vulnerability. Marriage, love, intimacy, all of these open doors to the unseen world, and where there is purity, there is envy. This is why Islam teaches that before a man approaches his wife, he should say, "In the name of Allah, keep us away from Satan and keep Satan away from what you bless us with." This simple prayer is a shield, not superstition, not folklore, a recognition that the unseen is real and the sacred must be guarded. If Sarah's story were told through an Islamic lens, she would not be seen as cursed but tested. The demon would not be named Asmodeus but recognized as a shaitan, one of many whose goal is to fracture love and sow despair. And Raphael, he would not be named but his role might be understood, a helper sent by God, an unseen force guiding toward healing. The means would differ. Instead of burning fish liver, there might be recitation. Instead of a wedding chamber stalked by death, there would be a home shielded by prayer. But the core truth would remain, that there are forces that seek to undo what is good. That there are helpers, seen or unseen, who protect what is holy. That healing is not always loud. Islam teaches that some among the jinn pretend to be righteous. They pose as protectors, offer false companionship, and then twist their influence into obsession, depression, isolation. And it teaches that some human suffering is linked not to physical illness or mental imbalance, but to waswasa, the whispering of devils. Not all, but some. And the cure, again, is found in the words of God. But this belief does not exclude the possibility of divine intervention through other means. Many Muslims can recount moments when strangers offered the right word, when danger was avoided without explanation, when dreams brought answers. Though the name Raphael is not invoked, the pattern is familiar. A helper appears, guidance is given, healing follows. It is as if the divine prefers to work in ways that do not draw attention. In the Book of Tobit, Raphael defeats Asmodeus and then disappears. In Islam, the Prophet tells us that angels descend when the name of God is remembered and vanish when it is not. Their presence is not for spectacle, it is for support. So the absence of Raphael's name in Islam is not necessarily a rejection of his role. It is a difference in emphasis. Islam centers the act of healing on God alone and sees angels as servants, never heroes. They are not to be worshipped, not even celebrated. They are honored by their obedience, not their personalities. In this way, the silence around Raphael becomes a statement of reverence. And yet the message he brings, the protection of the pure, the breaking of curses, the healing of what was broken, resonates across both traditions. So perhaps we have been too quick to divide. Perhaps Sarah's suffering is not distant from the Muslim heart. Perhaps Tobias's trembling is not unlike the fear felt by any believer standing at the edge of something sacred. Perhaps the fish, the fire, the wedding, these are symbols that need not be replicated but recognized. For the battle is still happening. The demon may not be called Asmodeus, but he still stalks joy. He still envies peace. He still seeks to destroy what was meant to bring us closer to God. And the angel may not be named Raphael, but he still walks unseen, still guides the desperate, still slays what we cannot face. If we learn anything from this sacred convergence, it is this: healing is real, protection is promised, and the unseen is closer than we think. Across the sacred traditions of the world, demons have worn many faces. In some stories, they possess the body. In others, they haunt the mind. In the ancient scriptures, they tempt, they twist, they destroy. But in all of them, they represent one thing: a force that resists the will of God. Whether named Asmodeus or Iblis, whether cast as fallen angel or arrogant jinn, the message is consistent. There is opposition in the unseen, and that opposition desires to sever what the divine seeks to unite. In the story of Tobias and Sarah, the demon was not vague. He was personal. He had a name. He had a pattern. He had a goal. He waited until joy was close, and then he shattered it. One husband, then two, then three. By the time Tobias arrived, Sarah's hope was exhausted, and the fear was real, not only for her, but for him, who would willingly enter a room haunted by invisible death. Yet the Book of Tobit tells us that Tobias went forward, not because he was fearless, but because he trusted the guidance of a man he barely knew. That man, Raphael, promised safety. He did not say the demon would vanish on its own. He gave instruction. He prepared the space. He told Tobias to burn the fish's heart and liver, not because the organs held magic, but because they were part of the divine plan, sacred tools in a sacred fight. And then he chased the demon, not just out of the room, out of the land. He pursued it into Egypt, that ancient place of trials and plagues, of sorcerers and gods. And there Raphael bound it, not with rope, but with divine command. But this story, powerful and filled with wonder, is not embraced by all traditions. In Protestant Christianity, it is omitted. In Islam, it is unrecognized. The Book of Tobit, like many apocryphal writings, rests in the shadows, respected by some, discarded by others. And Asmodeus, the demon of lust and destruction, is known in Jewish lore but absent in the Quran. This raises more than a question about names. It raises a question about our comfort with the unseen. In the Islamic worldview, demons, shayateen, exist. They are created beings. They whisper, they deceive, they influence, but they are not fallen angels. Angels in Islam cannot disobey. They are pure. They are incapable of rebellion. The story of Iblis is unique. He was not an angel but a jinn. His pride led to his fall. His promise to mislead humanity is well documented. And yet, even Iblis must seek permission to act. This view provides a structure. Angels obey. Jinn may rebel. Humans are tested. And the world is a stage for this test. So when a Christian or Jew speaks of fallen angels and demonic interference in human affairs, the Muslim response is careful, not dismissive, but distinct. Angels do not fall, they say, but demons still act. So what then of Raphael, the demon slayer? What then of an angel who does more than deliver messages, who hunts evil, who binds it, who stands in its path? Does such a figure exist in the Islamic imagination? The answer is complex. He is not named, but the role is not impossible. Islam teaches that angels protect the believers, that angels record, guide, inspire, that there are those appointed to guard each human, that Jibril came to the prophets not only with words but with strength in battle, that Mikael oversees the movements of the earth, that Israfil waits to end all things with a single breath. So why not Raphael? Why not an angel who defends a marriage? Why not an unseen warrior who drives out what corrupts the heart? Perhaps the name is not the issue. Perhaps the real question is, have we accepted the idea that divine help often goes unnoticed? In the world of modern faith, we often seek rationality. We seek what is measurable, but faith was never meant to be measured. It was meant to be trusted. And Raphael, whether called by name or veiled by silence, is a symbol of that trust. He reminds us that not all battles are seen, that not all victories are sung, that sometimes an angel defeats a demon in the night while we sleep, and we never know. So what have we lost by silencing this story? We have lost the reminder that heaven does not wait for our permission to intervene. We have lost the image of healing as warfare, not against flesh, but against what tries to steal peace. We have lost the understanding that sometimes our deepest fears are answered not with thunder, but with a quiet hand guiding us through the fire. And here is the final challenge. What if Raphael's story was meant to disturb our categories? What if healing and warfare are not opposites? What if the angel who cures blindness is the same who binds evil? What if our division between guardian angel and warrior angel is a division of comfort, not truth? And what if the stories we removed from our scriptures, Tobit, Enoch, the apocryphal scrolls, were not removed because they were false, but because they were inconvenient, too mystical, too wild, too free? What then? What if the reason you have not heard Raphael's story is not because it was unimportant, but because it was too important, too close to your own pain, too similar to your unanswered prayers, too familiar to your silent battles? And if so, then maybe you already know him. Maybe you have felt him. Maybe your marriage, your healing, your peace is a sign that someone once walked beside you. Unnamed, unnoticed, but not absent. So we end not with certainty, but with a question. If God still sends angels, and if demons still stalk joy, then what story are you living right now? And will you recognize the help when it arrives? Even if it comes from someone you do not expect. Even if it comes from someone the world has forgotten. When we open the Quran and search for names, some leap from the page with force. Jibril is there, not just mentioned but revered. He is the one who brought the Quran itself to the heart of the Prophet. Mikael appears as well, known as the angel of sustenance, responsible for bringing rain, nurturing life. And though less prominent, the Hadith literature introduces Israfil, the one who stands poised with the trumpet of doom, ready to sound the end of time. But there is no mention of Raphael, no verse, no name, no story, nothing. It is a curious silence, for in Christian and Jewish traditions, Raphael stands as one of the great archangels, one of the 7 who stand before the throne of God. He is not simply a divine messenger. He is the healer, the protector, the companion of the weak. He is the one who guided Tobias, who cast down the demon Asmodeus, who restored the sight of the blind. He is a figure of immense compassion, and yet in the Quran he is not there. No mention, not a whisper. So where did he go? Did Islam erase him, or did Islam never know him? Or is there something more subtle at play, something beneath the surface? First, we must understand that the Quran does not operate like the Bible. It is not a catalog of stories. It does not name every character, describe every angel, or explain every mystery. It reveals truths as needed, not as expected. When the Quran names, it does so with purpose. And when it withholds a name, it is often because the identity is not the focus. The message is. Still, the question lingers. If Raphael was truly an angel of such stature, why is he unnamed? Scholars have wrestled with this for centuries. Some suggest that Raphael is not missing, but renamed. They point to Israfil, the angel who will blow the trumpet to end the world. His name is not in the Quran itself, but appears in multiple hadith traditions, reported with varying chains of narration. Israfil is described as standing with the trumpet to his lips, his eyes fixed on the throne, waiting for the divine command that will shatter the heavens. Some hadiths say he has not blinked since he was created, so that he will not miss the signal. The name Israfil and Raphael share linguistic roots. Both are believed to derive from a Semitic root meaning God heals or God's remedy. Some traditions have even fused the two, identifying Raphael with Israfil, suggesting that Islam did not forget Raphael but preserved him under a new name and with a new role. But this theory is not without challenges. For one, the character of Israfil in Islam is not a healer. He is an executor of divine decree. His role is not restoration but finality. He ends life. He announces judgment. He breaks the silence of the universe with a sound so overwhelming that all living things fall to the ground. How then can this be the same Raphael who gently cured blindness and guided a trembling boy? Others argue that Raphael may have never been part of the early Islamic worldview. They point to the Quran's focus on core angelic figures, Jibril, Mikael, and the unnamed multitudes who serve at God's command. They argue that Raphael was a figure born of apocryphal literature, venerated in Christian tradition, but absent from Jewish scripture until much later. His inclusion in the Book of Tobit, a text not recognized in all canons, weakens his claim to universal presence. But is absence the same as rejection? Not necessarily. The Quran often speaks of things without naming them. It mentions the companions of the cave but not their names. It speaks of Pharaoh's magicians but not their number. It speaks of a woman who ruled over Sheba but calls her not by name but by title. It speaks of angels who came to Ibrahim but only identifies Jibril later through commentary. So perhaps the name Raphael was never meant to be the focus. Perhaps the role mattered more than the title. And what was Raphael's role? Healing, guidance, defense, mercy. Are these roles found in Islamic angelology? Yes, but scattered. Jibril brings revelation, that is healing of the soul. Mikael brings provision, that is healing of the land. Israfil will bring resurrection, that is the healing of death itself. And then there are others, the guardian angels who record every deed, the angels of death who take the soul, the protectors who shield believers from harm. In this structure, Raphael may not be missing. He may be present in the function, but not the name. And yet names carry weight, they carry memory. When we lose a name, we lose a story, we lose a face. We lose the intimacy that comes with knowing someone by what they are called. Raphael is not just a title, he is a presence, a figure who walks beside the vulnerable, who waits in the shadows, who shows up not in triumph but in tenderness. If Islam removed his name, was it for theological clarity? Or was it because the name came through paths the Quran chose not to validate? This is not a rejection of angels. It is a recentering of focus. Islam constantly turns the believer back to Allah alone. Angels are honored but never worshipped. They are trusted but never sought directly. They do not act of their own will, but only as extensions of divine command. So the Islamic tradition may not need Raphael's name to honor his mission. Still, the question burns. What do we lose when we stop naming the healers? What do we forget when the companions of mercy are no longer part of our prayers? The Christian tradition remembers Raphael as a saint. His feast day is celebrated. His image is painted in cathedrals. His story is told to children. And even within those who have set the Book of Tobit aside, the idea of Raphael remains, faint but not gone. But in Islam, his name is barely a whisper. So we are left with a paradox. A faith that believes in angels. A faith that believes in healing. A faith that believes in the unseen. And yet a faith that does not speak his name. Not because it denies the work he did, but because it does not need to. Still, the human heart longs for stories. It craves names, faces, memories. It desires not just theology, but narrative. And perhaps, in the silence surrounding Raphael, God is asking us something deeper. Can you trust me, even when the helper has no name? Can you believe in healing, even when the hand that brings it remains invisible? Can you receive mercy, even if no one but I knows who sent it? Throughout history, the names of angels have drifted across languages like winds through the leaves of sacred trees. They've been shaped by tongues, carved by cultures, and refined by theology. What was once whispered in Aramaic became Latin, then Greek, then Arabic. With each translation came a choice. Which names to preserve, which roles to highlight, which stories to tell, and which to let fade. In the Jewish tradition, the Book of Enoch offered a cosmic vision, angels as warriors, judges, teachers, and watchers. It named 7 who stood before the throne. Raphael was among them, as was Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, and others whose names have slipped into the background of liturgical memory. These texts weren't included in the official Hebrew canon, but they lingered in thought, in commentary, in mystic imagination. In Enoch's pages, Raphael was not merely a healer, but the one tasked with binding Azazel, the fallen watcher whose corruption helped flood the earth. From there, Raphael passed into Christian scripture through the Book of Tobit, which told of his healing and guidance. In the Catholic and Orthodox traditions, he remains prominent. Feast days are held in his name. Statues are sculpted in his honor. Churches bear his title. Raphael the companion, Raphael the protector, Raphael the saint. But in the Protestant world, his story was left behind. Tobit was cast out along with other books labeled deuterocanonical, useful, perhaps, but not inspired. Raphael's name remained in theological discussions but slowly dimmed in the public imagination. Then came Islam. With the revelation of the Quran, a new clarity emerged, one that did not depend on inherited names. It spoke of angels not as individuals with elaborate mythologies, but as servants of God. Their ranks were beyond counting. Their roles were precise. Their obedience was perfect. And in that divine architecture, only a few were named. Jibril was given prominence, he who brought revelation, the one who descended with truth, the spirit entrusted to guide prophets. Mikael was honored, guardian of sustenance and order, orchestrator of rain and divine mercy upon the earth. Israfil entered through the Hadith traditions, poised to blow the trumpet that would end time itself. But Raphael, he was not there. Not named, not discussed, not woven into Quranic verses. For a tradition that acknowledges the unseen with such seriousness, the omission feels deliberate, not accidental, not forgetful, purposeful. Why? Because Islam did not seek to mirror previous scriptures. It brought its own structure, its own terminology, its own way of describing the same world behind the veil. But names are more than terms. They are identities. And when names are lost, something within the story becomes distant. Yet we must be cautious, for in Islam, the essence matters more than the label. If Raphael is the angel of healing, then perhaps that role lives on in unnamed agents, angels who protect believers on journeys, angels who answer prayers in the night, angels who push danger away without ever revealing their presence. One narration tells us that when a believer recites Ayat al-Kursi before sleep, an angel is appointed to guard them until morning. Another says that angels surround those who remember God. Others speak of angels who bring peace into the home, who descend in gatherings of dhikr, who replace fear with calm. These stories are scattered across hadiths and interpretations, and while they lack singular names, their presence is constant. Could one of them be Raphael? Could the healing hand that touches the broken-hearted, the whispered comfort to the grieving, the sudden clarity during confusion, could these be the fingerprints of the angel we once called Raphael? Possibly. But Islam does not ask that question. It points to the source. Every cure, every mercy, every unseen rescue is from Allah. The angel may carry it, but the command belongs to the Creator. In this way, Islam repositions the narrative. It decentralizes the angels. It recenters God. It silences names so that the attention never shifts. And yet the heart still wonders. We crave stories. We need names. Not for worship, but for closeness. For memory. And it is here that the contrast becomes most profound. In Christianity, Raphael is a companion, someone to pray to walk with, to name. In Islam, angels are honored but never addressed directly. Prayers are made to God alone. Intercession is allowed but only through prophets or by divine permission. The barrier is not one of power, but of purity. Still, the functions remain strikingly similar. Both traditions agree: angels guide, angels heal, angels protect. So the disagreement is not over what happens. It is only over who gets named. And here lies the deeper challenge. What happens when traditions speak of the same presence, but use different names? What happens when one faith says Raphael, and another says nothing at all? Do we assume contradiction? Or do we search for harmony in the silence? Because perhaps the angel was always there. Perhaps the man who guided Tobias and the angel who guards believers by night are not strangers. Perhaps the fish that brought healing and the whispered dreams that bring clarity are cousins in divine will. Perhaps the name was never the point. Still, we must ask, what have we lost in forgetting him? What has been erased, not by doctrine but by distance? The healing stories no longer told. The prayers never whispered. The sense of companionship that fades when a name disappears. When we remove a name from Scripture, we do not erase the truth, but we do make it harder to hold. We make it easier to forget the intimacy of divine help. We make angels seem distant. We turn miracles into metaphors. And in that, the heart loses something it did not know it needed. So perhaps the question is not, is Raphael in the Quran? Perhaps the question is, do we still believe that heaven walks beside us? Do we still believe that mercy comes wrapped in silence? Do we still believe in healing, not as a metaphor but as an act? And if the answer is yes, then perhaps Raphael never left. Perhaps he was never erased, only renamed, or left unnamed. Because sometimes when heaven sends help, it does not speak. It simply arrives. If we forget the name of an angel, does the angel forget us? The question is more than poetic, it is prophetic. For names are not only identifiers, They are vessels of memory. And when a name is erased, something precious is lost, not just in the pages of Scripture, but in the heart that once held it. Raphael once stood among the greatest of heaven's messengers. He was not just an angel of tasks. He was the companion of the suffering, the quiet presence of divine mercy. He was known not by his thunder, but by his touch. He was the one who walked beside men and made no demand to be seen. And now, across much of the religious world, his name has faded, not denied, not cursed, simply forgotten. What does that tell us? It tells us that even heaven's most faithful servants can be hidden by history, that even a messenger sent by God can vanish from the story if we choose not to tell it. And if that is true, what else have we lost? The Book of Tobit, where Raphael plays his most visible role, is still read in Catholic and Orthodox churches. But in many Protestant circles, it is unknown. The Book of Enoch, where Raphael binds Azazel and punishes rebellion, is lost to almost all but a few Christian mystics and Ethiopian believers. In Islam, there is no Book of Tobit, no mention of Azazel, no account of demons who fall in love and destroy grooms in jealousy. The Quran speaks with clean authority, preserving what it intends and leaving the rest in silence. But silence is not the same as falsehood. It is a choice to leave some things unnamed. And that choice invites a challenge. Because if Raphael's name could disappear, what else might have been hidden? What other parts of our sacred memory have been filed away under non-canonical, apocryphal, unknown? Did the angels we forgot ever leave? Or did we just stop looking for them? There was a time when angels were not theoretical. They were not reduced to metaphors. They were real beings who fought and healed, who wrestled with Jacob and comforted Hagar, who struck armies and carried messages to prophets. They were active participants in the divine-human relationship. They were feared, loved, and trusted. Now in modern belief, angels are often softened, stripped of their power, rendered into symbols. But what if we've gone too far? What if the softness is not reverence but amnesia? Raphael was the angel of healing. And when we removed his name from the story, we removed something of our belief in healing, too. Not just the physical kind, but the divine kind. The kind that comes unannounced. The kind that walks beside you on a desert road. The kind that binds what haunts your house and leaves without asking for credit. That kind of healing is difficult to define. It does not fit in scientific journals. It does not perform under pressure. It does not prove itself in the ways the world demands. And so, like Raphael, we quietly set it aside. We choose logic, we choose history, we choose control. And angels disappear. Yet heaven still moves. God still sends help. But now we do not see it. We do not recognize it. We have no name for it. And so we think it did not happen. But it did. In dreams that warned us. In strangers who said one sentence that changed our path. In near accidents that never happened. In illnesses that disappeared for no medical reason. In peace that arrived like a river after years of drought. That was Raphael, or someone like him, sent not to be honored but to help. And here the interfaith challenge becomes sharp. If Christians once knew Raphael but began to forget him, and if Muslims never named him at all, what does that say about our sacred memory? If we erase a name, do we erase a part of God's mercy? If we lose a story, do we lose a map to healing? And if so, how many other maps have we discarded? What else have we thrown out because it was labeled apocryphal, unverified, unauthenticated? What books? What prayers? What moments? The name of Raphael forces us to reckon with the filters we place over faith. Canon, doctrine, consensus. But what if heaven never intended to be organized? What if heaven was meant to be encountered, wild, mysterious, full of things that do not always fit into clean categories? In the Book of Tobit, Raphael never boasts. He never calls attention to himself. He completes his task and reveals his identity only when the healing is done. Then he vanishes. He does not say, "Tell the world about me." He says, "Praise God." And maybe that's the point. Maybe Raphael was never meant to be the center of the story. Maybe the fact that he could be forgotten is exactly what makes him holy. He came not for glory. He came for the blind man, for the fearful bride, for the obedient son. He came to restore what was broken. And then he left. Now, centuries later, his name hovers on the edge of memory. Unspoken in some religions, dismissed in others. Yet his fingerprints remain. In every miracle we cannot explain. In every peace that comes without a cause. In every healing that arrives without a healer. So now we ask, if Raphael was erased, what is left of him? And the answer is this. Not his name. Not his statue. Not his feast day. But his echo. In you. In me. In the belief that heaven still sees us. In the faith that help still comes. In the hope that no matter how forgotten we feel, we are not alone. And if that is true, then maybe Raphael was never lost. Maybe we were. Until now. In the beginning, when men still believed that strangers might be sacred, there was a quiet understanding among the ancient people. Not every traveler was merely flesh and dust. Some came from beyond. Some carried messages wrapped in human form. And though their feet touched earth, their origin was not of it. In the scriptures they came often, appearing not in flaming chariots but as men, ordinary, unremarkable, until the moment heaven revealed their true nature. One of the most enduring patterns in divine storytelling is the angel who walks unnoticed. He does not announce himself. He does not shimmer with light. He does not demand awe. Instead, he asks a question. He walks a road. He shares a meal. He helps with a journey. And then only when the task is done does he speak his name, then vanishes. Raphael was one such angel. In the Book of Tobit, he entered the life of a blind man and his fearful son without miracle or spectacle. He called himself Azarias, claiming to be the son of Ananias, a relative, a helper, a man from the tribe of Naphtali. There was no trumpet, no lightning, just a gentle offer of assistance. Tobit, having lost his sight, sensed something sacred in the stranger, but he did not press. He simply asked him to guide his son on a journey to retrieve silver entrusted to a distant kinsman. Azarias agreed, and the path that unfolded would become one of the most intimate angelic encounters ever recorded. Tobias, Tobit's son, traveled with the stranger. They walked through wilderness and across rivers. When a monstrous fish threatened Tobias in the Tigris, the angel gave precise instructions. Seize the fish, extract its heart, liver, and gall. He did not explain why. He simply guided, and Tobias obeyed. Later they arrived in the city of Ecbatana, where Sarah lived, tormented, ashamed, surrounded by a mystery no one could break. 7 husbands had died on their wedding night, all of them struck down by an unseen force. And now she was alone, a warning more than a woman. But Azarias, still just a man in their eyes, told Tobias to marry her. Tobias hesitated. Azarias gave him courage. He explained that the fish's organs would drive away the demon. He taught Tobias to prepare the room. He guided him through the fear. And then the miracle happened. Asmodeus fled. Peace returned. And still, Azariah said nothing of his true identity. They returned with Sarah to Tobit. Tobias applied the fish's gall to his father's eyes, and once again the impossible happened. The white film peeled away. Sight returned. The old man wept not in pain but in light. It was only then that the stranger revealed himself. "I am Raphael," he said, "one of the 7 who stand before the throne." And in that moment the ordinary vanished. The veil lifted. The companion was not a man but a messenger, not a traveler but a servant of heaven, not Azariah's but Raphael. This is the mystery of angels who walk as men. They come not to be honored but to help. They come not to teach theology but to embody mercy. They wear our form not to deceive but to draw near. Because if they came in their true form, with wings that span the sky and voices that shake the earth, we would fall to our knees in terror. But when they come like us, when they look like us, we walk beside them, we speak, we share our fears, we open our wounds, and in doing so we allow healing to begin. This pattern is not unique to Raphael. In the Torah and the Quran, angels came to Ibrahim in the form of guests. They sat with him beneath a tree. They ate, though the food remained untouched. They brought good news of a son. They brought warning of a city to be destroyed. And only when he began to sense something divine in them did they declare who they truly were. In the New Testament, the Book of Hebrews urges believers to show hospitality to strangers, for by so doing some have entertained angels unaware. The principle is the same. The divine often wears a face we do not expect. And what does that mean for us? It means we must remain open. It means the next weary traveler, the next quiet voice, the next gentle hand could be more than we see. But it also means something more unsettling. If heaven can send angels disguised as men, then what have we missed? Who have we ignored? What help have we rejected because it did not come wrapped in the glory we expected? What wisdom have we dismissed because it sounded too simple? Raphael's story exposes this weakness in the human heart. We seek grandeur, but God often sends gentleness. We expect visions, but God sends voices. We want miracles, but God sends people. And sometimes angels. This angel, Raphael, walked as a man. He did not demand recognition. He did not take credit for healing Tobit's eyes or casting out Asmodeus. He asked only that they give thanks to God. Then he departed. He did not linger. He did not build a shrine. He left as silently as he came. And now, centuries later, many no longer know his name. Yet his story still speaks. It whispers, heaven has not abandoned the earth. It reminds us, help may already be walking beside you. It asks, will you notice when the divine arrives quietly? Or will you miss the angel because he looked too much like you? In the vast realm of Islamic tradition, the idea of angels taking on human form is not foreign. It is, in fact, one of the most powerful motifs in the Quran and the Hadith. Angels, though created from light and possessing no free will, can, by God's permission, appear as men. When they do not come with wings unfurled or voices that split the heavens. They come quietly, as strangers, as guests, as messengers whose truth is hidden until the right moment. The Quran tells us of the day Ibrahim, peace be upon him, looked out and saw 3 men approaching. He did not know they were angels. He thought they were travelers dusty from the road. He slaughtered a calf for them, placed the meat before them, and watched. But they did not eat, and his heart began to tremble. Only then did they reveal who they were. They came with 2 messages, one of joy, that he would have a son, and one of judgment, that the people of Lut would face destruction. These angels had a dual purpose, to deliver mercy and to execute justice, but they came first as men. This same pattern appears again during the final days of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. One day a man entered the mosque. He wore white clothes and had dark hair. He bore no signs of travel. He sat before the Prophet with reverence, knees touching, hands on his thighs, and asked 3 questions. What is Islam? What is Iman? What is Ihsan? The Prophet answered. The man nodded. Then he rose and walked away. The companions were silent, confused. The Prophet asked, "Do you know who that was?" They said no. He said, "That was Jibril. He came to teach you your religion." In both moments, recognition came only after the angel had gone. This is the challenge of divine presence. It rarely comes announced. It rarely conforms to our expectations. And when it does, it requires discernment not of the eye, but of the heart. In Islam, angels are never independent actors. They move only by divine command. They do not choose when or how to appear. And so, their appearance as men is not a reduction of their glory, but a demonstration of God's mercy. He makes the heavenly bearable. He cloaks the terrifying in the familiar. But Islam also warns that recognition is not guaranteed. There is a hadith that says angels do not enter a home where there are images, statues, or dogs. There is another that says they avoid the presence of impurity. Their arrival is conditional. Their presence is selective. They are not bound by human will. This makes the appearance of Raphael in the Book of Tobit a familiar yet mysterious event to a Muslim mind. Though the name Raphael is never mentioned in the Quran, his behavior echoes what is known of angelic presence. He walks with Tobias, guides him, gives him commands with divine precision, intervenes against a dark force, restores sight, and then disappears. He does not claim power. He does not accept worship. He reveals himself only at the end, and then asks for thanks to be given not to him, but to God. Such a role aligns with how Islam views angels. They are not to be praised. They are not intermediaries for prayer. They are instruments of the divine. Yet the discomfort remains. His name is missing. Not because the act is wrong, but perhaps because the focus is elsewhere. In Islam, it is not important who the angel was. What matters is that help arrived, that healing happened, that a soul was guided. And so Islamic teaching shifts the gaze. It asks the believer not to chase the identity of the messenger, but to reflect on the one who sent him. Still, the human heart longs for recognition. It seeks familiarity. It finds peace in names. And when names are withheld, we often feel distant from the truth. But perhaps that distance is intentional. Perhaps the absence of names is a call to deeper faith, to trust in God even when we do not see the form of help, to believe in protection even when we cannot name the protector, to accept healing even when we do not recognize the hand that brought it. In the story of Maryam, the mother of Jesus, peace be upon them both, the angel Jibril came to her as a well-formed man. She was afraid. She did not know who he was. He told her not to fear. He was sent by God to deliver a pure child. Here again the pattern holds. The angel arrives in human form. The message is divine. The identity is revealed only when needed. This teaches us something profound. In Islam, the appearance of angels in human form is not to dazzle. It is to draw near, to deliver mercy without overwhelming, to allow a message to be received without terror. And so, when we reflect on Raphael walking as a man, we must not ask, why was he hidden? We must ask, how often has God sent help in a form we refuse to see? Perhaps you have walked beside someone who said exactly what you needed to hear. Perhaps you have met a stranger who arrived at the moment of crisis and vanished just as quickly. Perhaps you have been rescued, restored, redirected by a presence you could not explain. In these moments, the name does not matter. The robe, the wings, the title, all of these are irrelevant. What matters is that God intervened. That mercy was sent. That healing came. And so, Islam invites believers to live with the possibility of the unseen, to honor guests, to welcome strangers, to trust that angels still walk among us, not to be seen but to serve. And if one of them was once called Raphael in another scripture, then so be it. The name may change, but the mercy does not. There is something sacred in the idea that heaven walks beside us unannounced, that the divine, in its wisdom, would choose not to overwhelm us with brilliance, but to meet us where we are, in the clothing of the familiar, in the voice of a stranger, in the form of a man who simply appears when he is needed. This is not weakness. It is not trickery. It is mercy. It is restraint. It is the theology of disguise. The angel who walks as a man disrupts our expectations. He reminds us that help does not always look like help. That divine answers may wear dusty robes and tired faces. That messengers may arrive without halos, without titles, without any sign at all, except the fruit of their presence. And yet, how many times have we missed them? Because they did not fit our image of the miraculous. Because they came from the wrong direction. Because their hands were calloused, or their grammar was flawed, or their timing was inconvenient. We say we believe in angels. We teach our children about their wings and light and power. But what if believing in angels also means believing in the possibility that one of them might be sitting across from us on a bus, standing silently behind us in a crowd, holding the door open at a moment when our soul was collapsing? The story of Raphael, who called himself Azarias, confronts this blindness in us. He did not descend in fire. He did not announce his mission. He walked, he listened, he instructed, he helped. And only after the healing, only after the exorcism, only after the journey was complete, did he say, "I am Raphael." And then he was gone. His disguise was not deception. It was protection. For the human heart is fragile. It is easily overwhelmed. It craves clarity but fears what it cannot control. And so heaven, in its compassion, sends help in a form we can bear, not to impress us, but to reach us. But when we remove such stories from our sacred books, as many did with Tobit, we remove more than a tale. We remove a lens, a way of seeing, a way of remaining awake to the quiet mercies that still move around us. And when we reject the idea that angels could ever walk as men, as some have come to do, we close the door on a central truth of revelation. That God works through the ordinary. That heaven can look like earth. That miracles can wear sandals. In the Quran, angels appear in human form multiple times. They eat with Ibrahim, though they do not consume. They visit Maryam, though they do not declare themselves at first. They sit in the Prophet's mosque, asking questions about faith, appearing as students before revealing themselves as teachers. Each time, they remind us that seeing is not always knowing, that the eye is not the final judge of truth. So why do we still assume that angels must be bright to be real? Why do we imagine them only in glory and not in grace? And what happens to a people who forget how to recognize help when it comes clothed in humility? Perhaps that is the deeper tragedy of Raphael's fading name. Not that he is absent, but that we stopped noticing him. Because we demanded signs. Because we demanded spectacle. Because we thought that divine help should always look divine. But what if heaven prefers to whisper? What if the stranger walking beside us is more holy than the vision we are still waiting for? What if our assumptions have become our blindness? In many faith traditions, there is a quiet warning: be careful how you treat the unknown, the guest, the outsider, the one who arrives without announcement, for you do not know who they truly are. You may be entertaining an angel, and if that is true, then every moment becomes sacred. Every encounter becomes a chance, and every refusal becomes a danger. Because if angels walk as men, then our kindness matters more than we realize. Our hospitality is no longer a courtesy, it is a test. Our generosity is no longer optional, it is observed. Raphael, walking as Azarias, reminds us that holiness can come in disguise, that the divine may choose to move beside us in silence, that healing can arrive through a stranger's voice, and we will only understand the truth when it is over. So now, the challenge is not theological. It is practical. It is personal. Will we notice the angel when he arrives? Will we trust the instructions even when they seem strange? Will we listen to the quiet voice that tells us to marry the one others fear, to burn the fish's liver, to walk a path we did not choose? Or will we argue, demand proof, wait for light, and miss the miracle? This is the danger of forgetting Raphael. Not that we lose a name, but that we lose a way of seeing. We lose the courage to accept help that looks too human. We lose the willingness to believe that heaven might reach down without warning. And that loss is not doctrinal. It is spiritual. It makes us blind to the very thing we are praying for. So here the story turns inward. It is no longer about whether Raphael is real. It is about whether we are ready to recognize him when he walks beside us. And when he leaves, without glory, without farewell, will we even know what we missed? The desert was silent when they arrived. No trumpet announced them. No stars fell from the sky, just 3 men walking through the heat. They appeared suddenly, without warning, without explanation. Abraham was sitting outside his tent beneath the shade of the trees. He looked up and saw them. He did not ask who they were. He did not wait for names. He stood, welcomed them, and ran to prepare food. A calf was slaughtered. Bread was baked. Water was brought to wash their feet. In the ancient world, hospitality was not optional. It was a sacred duty. But here, it would become something more. They sat. They did not eat, and Abraham began to feel unease. Who were these men? Why had they come? Why did they refuse the meat he had prepared with such care? And then, before he could ask, they spoke. They told him what he had not dared to hope, that he and his wife Sarah would have a child, a son, a legacy. Though both were old, though the years had passed and the body had withered, the promise stood. Sarah laughed, not in disbelief but in wonder. Could such a thing still happen? Could the womb, long silent, be awakened? One of the visitors responded not with rebuke but with reassurance. Is anything too hard for the Lord? It was then that the truth began to unfold. These were no ordinary men. They were messengers, angels in disguise, sent not only to deliver glad tidings but to bring judgment. For just beyond the horizon lay Sodom, a city steeped in corruption, a place where the sacred had been mocked, where justice had been sold, where purity had been defiled. And these angels, these same beings who had just promised life, were now preparing to bring death. But only 2 would go forward. One remained behind to speak with Abraham, to test his compassion, to invite him into the mystery of divine justice. Abraham pleaded for the city. If there are 50 righteous, he said, what about 40, 30, 20, 10? Each time the response came gently. The city would be spared for the sake of the righteous. But none could be found. The angels went. The destruction came, and only Lot and his family escaped. This story is told in both the Bible and the Quran. But the question remains, who were these angels? Were they named? Were they known? And if one of them was the bearer of good news, the voice of comfort and mercy, could that have been Raphael? In the Bible, their names are not given in this moment. Only later does the narrative reveal that one was the Lord himself and the others were angels. Jewish and Christian traditions often interpret this scene through the lens of Trinity or theophany, God appearing in the form of man. But others suggest the three were simply angels, each with a role. Gabriel to announce, Raphael to heal, Michael to destroy. In this view, Gabriel would have been the one who spoke of the coming son. Raphael would have come to heal Sarah's womb, and Michael would have gone forth to Sodom with fire in his command. Three angels, one message, a blend of mercy, miracle, and judgment. In Islamic tradition, the story is similar yet sharpened. The Quran speaks of the honored guests of Ibrahim. It describes their arrival, their silence, Ibrahim's fear when they did not eat. It recounts their words of reassurance. Do not be afraid, we have been sent to the people of Lut. They bring news of a son, Isaac, and after him a grandson, Jacob. Sarah laughs. The angels remind her of God's power. But here, the angels are not named. There is no mention of Gabriel, no Michael, no Raphael. Only the roles remain. They bring good news. They bring warning. They bring destruction. This silence on names is deliberate. Islam focuses not on the identity of the messengers, but on the one who sent them. The message matters more than the mouthpiece, the mission more than the title. Yet for those familiar with both scriptures, the parallels are clear. The angel who promises life. The angel who warns of death. The angel who walks as a man. These are not just stories of the past. They are portraits of divine action. So could Raphael have been among them? Could he have been the one who touched Sarah's womb with unseen fire, who spoke softly to calm her laugh, who stood silently while judgment moved forward? It is possible. The same angel who healed Tobit, who walked with Tobias, who cast out a demon, who vanished without glory. Why not here? Why not in the tent of Abraham? Why not in the moment between laughter and destruction? What is fascinating is that the Quran, though it does not name these angels, preserves their pattern. They do not consume the food. They bring news that seems impossible. They reassure without revealing their full nature. And then they act. This mirrors Raphael's behavior in Tobit exactly. He guides, he instructs, he completes the task, and then disappears. And still, the name is not spoken. In Jewish tradition, Raphael is often associated with healing. In the Talmud and Midrash, he is one of the three angels who visited Abraham. He is said to have restored Abraham's strength after circumcision, to have healed Sarah's womb, to have ensured that life would continue through this chosen lineage. But again, this is commentary, tradition, not scripture. So what do we make of it? If the same story appears across three religions, but the names shift, who is right? If one calls him Raphael and another calls him nothing, does that change the truth of his presence? Or does it reveal something deeper? That heaven is not always concerned with being identified. That angels do not require name tags to complete their mission. That divine help is not diminished by anonymity. But still, we long to know. We long to connect. We want to point and say, there he was there. Not just to prove our faith right, but to prove that heaven was close. That the God who promised life did not send the message through lightning, but through footsteps, through warmth, through strangers who sat in the dust, beneath trees, beside bread and water. 3 angels. 1 message. A child will be born. A city will fall. God is watching. And in the middle of it all, maybe Raphael stood. Silent, smiling, fulfilling his task. Then gone. In the Quran, the visit of the honored guests to Ibrahim is recounted not once, but several times, as if God himself is drawing attention to the subtle power of this event. It is not told for mere story's sake. It is a layered moment where faith, hospitality, divine mercy, and judgment collide. But what is striking in every retelling is that the guests are not named. They are not described in shimmering light or given voices that quake the mountains. They appear quietly, like travelers from the road. Their identity is hidden behind normalcy, and yet what they carry is world-shifting. Surah Hud tells us of their approach. Ibrahim sees the men and grows uneasy when they do not eat. In that culture, as in many even today, eating from the same plate is a sign of peace. Refusal is suspicion. Fear creeps into his chest, but they speak. Do not be afraid, they say. We have been sent to the people of Lut. In this, their purpose is half revealed. They are not simply visitors. They are messengers, enforcers, witnesses to the fate of a sinful people. Then, as if to balance the coming judgment, they bring mercy. We give you good news of a knowledgeable boy. Sarah, nearby, laughs. A laugh not of disbelief, but of bewildered joy. She asks, "Shall I bear a child when I am an old woman and this husband of mine is advanced in years?" The guests answer with divine authority. "Are you amazed at the decree of Allah? The mercy of Allah and his blessings be upon you, people of the house." Here lies the dual mission, punishment and promise, fire and future, ending and beginning, and all of it wrapped in a visit that began with no names and no glory. Islamic commentators have debated the identity of these guests for centuries. Most agree they were angels sent by Allah. Some say 3, others say more. But they agree that among them was the one who brought the glad tidings, the one who destroyed the wicked, and the one who reassured the hearts. Yet the Quran refuses to name them. It allows their work to speak louder than their identity. And this absence is not accidental. It reflects a theological principle in Islam: submission to the act of God, not to the instrument. Names in Islamic thought carry weight, but names can also become distractions. To name the angel is to risk elevating him. To know the messenger too well is to forget the message. And so, the Quran leaves the guests unnamed and thereby makes them eternal. But for the seeker who has heard of Raphael, the question cannot be ignored. Could he have been one of them? Could the angel who healed Tobit and walked beside Tobias have stood once under the trees of Ibrahim? Could the one known in Christian and Jewish texts as the restorer of life have been present in the moment when the lineage of prophets was secured? Some Islamic traditions have quietly allowed this possibility. Though Raphael is not named in the Quran, certain tafsir works mention 4 great angels: Jibril, Mikael, Israfil, and Azrael. Raphael is sometimes identified with Israfil, especially when connecting him to divine commands and sacred events. But others hold that Raphael is a distinct figure, known for healing, guidance, and quiet interventions. The visit to Ibrahim carries all 3 of these attributes. It is not far-fetched to imagine that the one who whispered to Sarah's aging womb and stirred its dormant life might have been the same who cured Tobit's blindness. That the same angel who made the fish into medicine could have turned the ache of infertility into the joy of motherhood. That Raphael, though unnamed, may have been part of that visit. But in Islam, the urge to assign names is met with caution, because the test is not in knowing the face of the angel. The test is in trusting the mercy of the sender. The Quran teaches that the angels act only by command. They do not sin. They do not delay. They do not argue. When God commands, they obey. Their loyalty is not to their identity but to their purpose. And that is the essence of Islamic angelology: function over form, obedience over fame. Still, the heart wonders, because humans are wired for narrative. We remember names. We crave stories. We are drawn to figures who feel close, who walked the earth, who appeared in the dust of our world and brought light. And Raphael is one of those figures. Though missing from the Quran, he lingers in the spaces between verses. His actions echo in the behavior of unnamed helpers. In every story of divine intervention that begins with fear and ends with joy, there is room for him. Perhaps it is not important whether he was there by name. Perhaps the better question is, was his mission fulfilled? Did healing arrive? Was a barren woman given a child? Was a prophet's fear turned into peace? Then the work was done. And the angel, whether called Raphael or not, returned to the unseen. This is the Islamic beauty in concealment. It honors the event without glorifying the servant. It preserves mystery without denying the miracle. And it gently reminds the believer that God does not need to be seen to be near, that his mercy does not always introduce itself, that help can come in silence. So perhaps the visit to Ibrahim is not diminished by its lack of names. Perhaps it is made holier by it, because the unnamed guest could be anyone. And the message they carried, of new life in old bodies, of destruction for those who mocked purity, is as needed now as it was then. And maybe that is the deeper lesson: that angels will still visit, that they will still come in forms we do not recognize, that they will still sit beneath our trees, eat at our tables, speak promises into our despair. And when they leave, we may never know who they were, but we will know what they left behind: a child, a warning, a changed heart. And if one of them was once called Raphael, then so be it. He does not need to be remembered to be real. They came without titles, without trumpets, without names that echoed across the heavens. Just three men appearing beneath the hot sky, standing before an old prophet and his barren wife. In that moment, Ibrahim did not ask for credentials. Sarah did not demand a lineage. They listened. They served. They doubted. Then they believed. And afterward, when the angels left, the tent still trembled with the weight of what had passed. So what does that say about us? We live in an age obsessed with names, with documentation, with evidence. We want to know who did what, who was where, which angel appeared, and why. We measure faith by its ability to explain itself, but heaven has never bent to human curiosity. It has always moved at its own pace, and sometimes it hides what we most wish to see. The story of the three visitors to Ibrahim invites a bold reflection. For if angels can come with no names, then who are we to demand them? If the divine can send healing, judgment, and prophecy through unnamed forms, what does that do to our obsession with classification? Our need to tie every miracle to a figure, our craving to trace every act of mercy back to a being we can list and label. It unsettles us, because names feel like proof, and without them, faith feels vulnerable. But perhaps that is the point. Perhaps faith in its truest form is not a map but a trust fall, not a chart but a whisper, not a name but a presence. So what do we do with Raphael? With this angel who appears in some scriptures but not in others, who heals and vanishes, who speaks only when the work is done? In Christian tradition, he is revered, named, invoked. In Islam, he is unknown, unnamed, yet not denied. The healing he brings echoes in unnamed visitors. His pattern of mercy repeats in scenes with no attributions. Could he have been one of the guests of Ibrahim? Yes. Could he have been the one who touched Sarah's womb with divine heat? Who reassured her in her laughter? Who reminded her that nothing is impossible for God? Yes. But does it matter? The interfaith tension lies right here. Christianity wants the name. Islam wants the message. One clings to the angel's identity. The other clings to God's action. One says it was Raphael. The other says it was Allah who sent them. Both are seeking the divine. Both are remembering mercy. But they part ways at the point of focus. And here is the challenge. If we insist that our version of the story is the only true one, do we lose the miracle in the process? If we argue about names while ignoring the mercy that arrived, do we become blind to the healing? What if both sides are holding different facets of the same diamond? What if the names are for us, but the mercy is from God? Raphael's story, or his echo, runs through all three traditions. In the Hebrew Bible, he is not named until the Book of Tobit. In Christianity, he is honored as one of the archangels, a bringer of healing. In Islam, his name is absent, but his pattern persists. In the unnamed guests, in the angel who reassures Maryam, in the forces who destroy Sodom after first delivering glad tidings. It is as though Raphael walks across the page, but never leaves a footprint. As if his mission is not to be known, but to make God known. And in that he succeeds. Because whether he is named or not, we still feel the warmth of his presence. In every unlikely birth. In every impossible healing. In every act of quiet rescue. So now the question returns to us. Do we need to know who the angel was? Or is it enough to know that God sent one? Are we so attached to certainty that we miss the beauty of mystery? Is our faith so fragile that it collapses without proper names? Or can we learn to see as Ibrahim saw, not through identification, but through hospitality? He did not know they were angels, but he welcomed them anyway. He did not ask for credentials. He offered food. He honored the guest. And the guest revealed the divine. This is the deeper truth buried in the interfaith divide. That perhaps the real test was not to recognize Raphael, but to respond to him. To listen. To trust. To receive the promise. To obey the warning. And if we do that, whether we call him Raphael or not, we have honored the message. We have walked in the faith of Abraham. And if one day we find out that it was indeed Raphael who stood beneath that tree, who whispered life into Sarah's bones, who watched as fire fell on the wicked, then let it be a joy. Not a proof, not a victory for doctrine, but a reminder that heaven moves among us, that God still sends help, that mercy can arrive unannounced, and that sometimes the angels we fail to recognize are the ones who change our lives the most. Long ago, in the shadowed years between prophets, when the voices of revelation had fallen quiet and the temple was still, a story began to circulate, a quiet story passed from elder to child, scribe to seeker. It was not in the canon, not in the scrolls guarded by priests or read aloud in the synagogue. It lived in the margins, in the apocrypha, in the books that some preserved and others dismissed. And in one such book, called Tobit, the name of Raphael was written. He was not introduced with fire or thunder. He did not speak from the heavens. He simply appeared, a traveler on the road, a helper to a family in crisis, a quiet companion to a young man on a dangerous journey. Yet as the story unfolded, it became clear that he was more than he seemed. The angel Raphael, whose name means God heals, revealed himself only at the end. And for those who read the tale with listening hearts, something deep stirred, an old truth about the nearness of the divine. But the Book of Tobit was not accepted by all. In the Jewish tradition, it fell outside the canon. It was preserved in the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew scriptures, but not in the official rabbinical texts. Later, the Catholic and Orthodox churches embraced it as sacred. Protestants, however, placed it among the Apocrypha, valuable perhaps, but not inspired. And so the story of Raphael lived in tension, sacred to some, suspicious to others, nearly forgotten by many. Yet the power of the tale refused to die. It begins in Nineveh with a man named Tobit, righteous, faithful, and blind. He had kept the commandments in exile, buried the dead when others were afraid, given alms to the poor, but suffering came anyway. His sight failed. His spirit sank. In despair, he prayed for death. At the same time, in distant Media, a woman named Sarah cried out to heaven. She too wished to die. For though she had married 7 times, each of her husbands had been killed on their wedding night by a demon named Asmodeus. She believed herself cursed, alone, unloved, despised. And into this darkness, Raphael was sent. Not with wings, not with a sword, but with quiet authority and a false name. He appeared in human form, calling himself Azarias, and offered to guide Tobit's son Tobias on his journey. His task, to retrieve silver entrusted to a kinsman, but the angel had another plan, one hidden even from Tobias himself. On the road, a monstrous fish leapt from the river. Raphael instructed the boy to catch it, to extract its liver, heart, and gall. Tobias obeyed. He did not understand, but he followed. Later they came to Sarah's city. Raphael told Tobias to marry her, to light incense, to use the fish's organs, to pray, to trust. And though fear gripped them both, they obeyed. That night the demon fled, and a curse was broken. Sarah was no longer bound. The journey continued. They returned home. Tobit was healed with the fish's gall. Blindness gave way to sight. Sorrow turned to joy. And only then, when the work was done, did Raphael reveal himself. "I am Raphael," he said, "one of the 7 angels who stand in the presence of God." It was a moment of unveiling, of awe, of trembling. The angel had walked beside them, slept under the same roof, shared their meals, and they had not known. This was the heartbeat of the story. That healing comes in disguise. That the divine walks beside us without demanding recognition. That miracles are not always loud. But the question arises, why was this story rejected by some and embraced by others? Why did the Jewish canon close its doors? Why did Protestant reformers label it apocrypha? Was it the simplicity of the miracle? The presence of an angel with a name? The role of magic-like rituals, fish organs and incense? Or was it something deeper? A discomfort with the nearness of the divine? A fear of angels walking as men? In the Book of Tobit, there is no grand theology, no cosmic battle, just a family in pain, and a God who sends help quietly. Raphael does not seek worship. He demands no altar. He gives credit to God alone. He disappears when his task is complete. And in that quiet exit lies a challenge. For if such a story is true, then help may come even now, even today, from a stranger with tired eyes and dusty feet. And if it is not true, then we must ask, Why does it feel so holy? The Book of Tobit was copied, preserved, read aloud by exiles, loved by the early church, painted by medieval artists, sung in monastic chants. Its words survived empires. Its angel walked through centuries. And whether we call it canon or apocrypha, its story presses against the edge of our doubt. Could it be that some truths are too soft to shout? That some messengers do not demand belief, but simply wait to be recognized? That the God who heals does not need thunder to speak? Only a road, a fish, a quiet voice saying, "Do not be afraid." Islam does not speak of the Book of Tobit. It offers no commentary, no rejection, no endorsement. The name Raphael is absent, unspoken across the pages of the Quran. And yet the themes within that ancient story, the healing, the mercy, the guiding of a soul through unseen trials, are not foreign to Islamic tradition. They echo softly in other tales. They live between the lines of scripture, like music heard from behind a veil. There is no verse in the Quran that names an angel called Raphael. Instead, 4 are mentioned across authentic sources: Jibril, who brings revelation; Mikael, who governs the natural world; Israfil, who will blow the trumpet on the day of judgment; and the angel of death, known as Malik al-Maut, sometimes named Azrael in commentary. But nowhere does Raphael stand as a separate identity. In some interpretations, Israfil is identified with the angel Christians call Raphael, especially because of his connection to the trumpet of resurrection, a kind of spiritual reawakening. Others say this is a conflation, a desire to map one theology onto another. But even if the name is not preserved, the pattern is. Over and over, the Quran presents moments where divine aid comes quietly, where someone suffers and God sends help, not with fanfare but with purpose. In Surah Al-Kahf, a righteous servant of God, understood to be Al-Qidr, guides Musa through a strange journey filled with acts that appear unjust. A boat is damaged, a boy is killed, a wall is repaired. Only later are these acts explained. Only then does the pattern emerge. And Musa, who asked for understanding, is told that he could not bear the unseen. This is the Islamic rhythm of hidden mercy, divine help that looks like harm, wisdom that must be trusted before it is explained. In this way, the story of Raphael in Tobit finds a strange resonance. For Tobias, like Musa, follows a guide without understanding his true nature. He carries out actions, a marriage, a ritual, a journey that seem disconnected. Only later is he told that the one beside him was an angel. In Surah Yusuf 2, we find a tale of patience and unseen redemption. Yusuf is thrown into a well, sold into slavery, imprisoned. Each moment feels like loss, but the Quran insists, indeed, my Lord is subtle in what he wills. That subtlety, God's ability to heal without spectacle, is the very heart of Tobit's tale. Raphael does not announce his power. He tells Tobias to keep the gallbladder, heart, and liver of a fish. He instructs step by step. And only when the journey is over does he reveal the truth, that he was sent by God. This sequence, suffering, obedience, hidden guidance, healing, is deeply Quranic. And so, Islam does not need to affirm the Book of Tobit for its spirit to survive within Islamic theology. The Islamic tradition is filled with reminders that the unseen world is closer than we think, that angels walk among us, recording deeds, protecting believers, guiding those whom God chooses. Surah Al-Ra'd tells us, "For each one are successive angels before and behind him who protect him by the decree of Allah." These guardians are not named. Their tasks are specific, yet they remain cloaked. This cloak of anonymity is purposeful. It removes the temptation to idolize. It shifts the believer's focus from the creation to the Creator. The Quran guards against giving angels too much prominence. Even Jibril, the greatest of them, is never independent. He is the servant of God, not his rival. His power is borrowed. His glory is a reflection. So if Raphael had walked the earth, if he had guided a boy, healed a father, exorcised a demon, and vanished in silence, Islam would not reject such an idea. It would simply frame it differently. The emphasis would not be on Raphael's name, but on God's mercy. It would say, a family was in pain, they cried out. God heard them. He sent an angel. The healing was real. The thanks belongs to Allah. And perhaps this is why Raphael's name never appears in the Quran. Not because he does not exist, but because the name was not needed. Because God heals, regardless of who carries the message. Still, the human desire for names is strong. We want to know who helped us. We want to look back and say, that was the moment. We want to say, Raphael was here. But Islam whispers, is it not enough that help came? The Quran teaches believers to pray, to ask for healing, to seek protection. And when that protection comes, whether through a doctor, a friend, a stranger, or an unseen force, it is considered an answer to prayer. The agent may be unknown, but the source is clear. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, once said, if you put your trust completely in Allah, He would provide for you as He provides for the birds. They go out hungry in the morning and return full in the evening. That provision may come through 100 hidden means, through coincidence, through a fish, through a guide who disappears, through a door opening at the last moment. In this way, Raphael's story is not alien to Islam. It is familiar. It is intimate. It is the kind of story that lives quietly in the corners of Muslim faith, unclaimed, unnamed, but never denied. And so, when Muslims read the Book of Tobit, they may feel a quiet recognition, not of the name, but of the mercy, of the divine hand moving, of the unseen help that arrives exactly when it is needed. And whether or not the name Raphael is written in the Quran, the idea of him is not foreign. He may not be cited by the scholars or listed among the great four, but his echo is heard in every moment a believer finds healing after pain, clarity after confusion, hope after despair. Perhaps that is his true role, not to be remembered but to remind, not to be honored but to serve. And in Islam, that is the noblest task of all. If a book falls out of favor, does the truth inside it disappear? If a name is erased from Scripture, does the one who bore it vanish from heaven's memory? These are not just literary questions, they are spiritual ones. For in the story of Raphael, we are confronted not only with a missing text, but with the deeper discomfort of lost names, fading traditions, and the quiet possibility that an angel was once known and is now forgotten. But was he truly forgotten? Or merely buried beneath the noise of canon and controversy? The Book of Tobit never made it into the Hebrew Bible. It stood on the threshold, beloved by many, excluded by others. The rabbis who preserved the core of Jewish scripture chose not to include it, perhaps due to its composition in Aramaic, perhaps because it was preserved in the diaspora, or perhaps because its miracles were too quiet, too intimate. Not grand enough, not doctrinally vital. It lingered instead in the Septuagint, embraced by early Christians who saw in it something radiant. A story of faith in exile, a healing that required no priest, an angel who walked unnoticed, then left without fanfare. For the Catholic and Orthodox churches, this was enough. Raphael lived on. But in the Protestant Reformation, the book was removed again, sidelined, labeled apocrypha, useful perhaps, but not inspired. And so, in many corners of the Christian world, Raphael faded. His story became unfamiliar, his name a mystery. The fish, the journey, the demon, the healing, all folded into the margins. Meanwhile, in Islam, the silence was louder. Raphael was never named at all. So now we must ask, if the book was lost, was the angel lost too? And if he was, what else have we forgotten? This is the interfaith challenge that stings more than it accuses. It invites us to consider what has been hidden, not maliciously but slowly over time. Stories do not need to be burned to be lost. They can simply be set aside, deemed unessential, left untranslated, unread. But the work of the angel remains. He still healed. He still cast out the demon. He still walked beside Tobias, taught him how to marry well, how to pray, how to trust. He still gave his name. I am Raphael, one of the 7 who stand in the presence of God. And that sentence, brief as it is, carries more theological weight than many realize. It implies a hierarchy, a council, a nearness to the divine. And perhaps that was part of the discomfort. For if there are 7 great angels, then who are they? And why do we only name some? And if Raphael is among them, why is he no longer spoken of? Islam answers with humility. The names are not the point. The function is. The obedience is. The healing is. Christianity responds with preservation. Some remember, some forget, but the story remains for those who seek it. Judaism, more cautious still, lets the silence speak. And yet, beyond religion, beyond doctrine, the story of Raphael continues to press against our assumptions. He is the patron saint of travelers, of the blind, of the sick, of young lovers, and those who seek God's guidance in marriage. He is invoked in prayers, even now, by those who do not know where the prayer originated. And whether or not his name is found in the Quran, the mercy he represents is everywhere in Islam. This convergence, the same healing, the same quiet guidance, the same protection of the innocent, suggests something deeper. That truth does not always require agreement. That holiness can echo across divides. That God's mercy can wear many forms, be called by many names, or by none at all. So what then is lost when a book is removed? Not the work of the angel. That cannot be undone. What is lost is the memory, the awareness, the invitation to see the divine in disguise. And perhaps that is the greatest loss of all. Because if Raphael could be forgotten, how many others have walked beside us unnoticed? How many moments of healing did we dismiss as coincidence? How many strangers did we fail to honor? How many journeys were guided by unseen hands, and we gave credit only to luck? The silence around Raphael is not just a matter of theology. It is a mirror. It shows us how quickly we let go of what is quiet, how easily we discard what does not fit our system, how slowly we forget the sacred when it wears no crown. But Raphael's story will not vanish. It lingers. It returns in whispers, in stories of recovery, unexpected peace, sudden insight, divine timing. In marriages that should have failed but did not. In illnesses that should have lingered but healed. In children born after long barrenness. In forgiveness that came without warning. These are the footprints of healing. And if we no longer call them Raphael, perhaps that is all right. Perhaps he does not mind. For angels do not seek remembrance. They do not ask for altars. They serve. They obey. They disappear. And their names, when spoken, are not for their sake but for ours. To remind us that heaven is close. That help is already on the way. That we are not abandoned in our suffering. And so, whether or not the Book of Tobit is read in your tradition, whether or not the name Raphael is found in your scriptures, the question remains, have you seen him? not with your eyes, but with your life. Have you felt the presence of someone walking beside you who asks for nothing, but leaves you healed? Have you sensed that your journey was not yours alone? That your tears were noticed? That your prayers were answered in ways you did not expect? If so, then Raphael has not been lost. He has only stepped into the silence, exactly where angels belong.